"My love, I'm finally home," the man said, voice raw and cracked, eyes glistening with tears he refused to let fall. His coat hung in tatters, soaked through with Lagos rain and 10 years of dust. A small battered travel bag swung from his shoulder like a broken wing. Soap bubbles floated between them in the humid air, fragile and mocking. Sandra froze at the washing basin, hands dripping suds. The clothes she had been scrubbing slipped from her fingers and plopped into the grey water. She stared at the stranger who wore her husband's face but none of his pride. "You," she whispered, voice trembling with 10 years of bitterness. "I lost everything waiting for you. I came back with nothing," he rasped. "Please, help me." Her face turned to stone. Without a word she seized the plastic bowl with both hands and flung the foaming water into his chest. It hit him like a slap from God. Wet clothes followed, slapping against his beard, his eyes, his pride. He staggered back, drenched, soap sliding down his face like white tears. A pair of faded boxers hung comically from his head. "You are a disgrace," Sandra said, voice flat as a blade. "My biggest mistake." The man dropped to his knees in the mud and suds. "Sandra, please." She picked up her phone, smirked, and dialed. "Jude, come quick. Come and see what shame-wearing shoes," from inside the house. A radio played a gospel song about mercy that had never felt so cruel. He stayed on his knees, palms pressed together as if praying his heart would not shatter completely. The gate creaked again. Jude strode in, cologne arriving before he did, polo shirt tight across his chest, grin wider than sin. "We're the beggar day." He laughed. Sandra pointed like she was showing off a trophy. "There, 10 years gone, came back empty-handed. Nothing. Hear me, nothing." She turned to the kneeling man. "Thank God I moved on. Thank God I'm carrying Jude's child." The man closed his eyes. The entire compound went silent. Even the radio seemed to hold its breath. Jude's voice boomed, deliberately loud. "Stand up, madam. Make we go inside." The door shut. The radio kept singing about mercy. Then the laughter stopped. Then the bed began to creak. The man on his knees pressed his trembling hands into the mud to keep them from flying apart. He looked at the sky and whispered one word, soft as a dying prayer. "Why?" Hours earlier, Murtala Muhammad International Airport smelled of new beginnings and jet fuel. Jeremy stepped past customs in a crisp navy suit, hair neatly edged, beard trimmed to perfection. His phone vibrated non-stop, David confirming the board meeting. Bankers salivating, security detailing the convoy of black G-wagons waiting outside like obedient panthers. On the glass wall he caught his reflection. The man Lagos would soon kneel to E. He also saw the 10-year canyon between him and the woman he had left behind. "Not yet," he told David. "Cancelled the front pickup. Park 2 streets away. Wait for my signal, sir. This is dangerous. I need to know if my home is still home." He checked into a small hotel on the mainland. Opened the secret package flown in from London. Torn coat, matted wig, fake beard, glue, dirt, and one old photograph, him and Sandra under the mango tree on their wedding day, laughing like tomorrow was guaranteed. He dressed himself in the lie, glued the wig, smeared dirt, practiced the broken walk of a defeated man in the cracked mirror until his stomach turned. "You'll know when to come," he told David, and hung up. Then he took an ordinary cab like an ordinary failure and watched Lagos roll past yellow buses, hawkers, billboards promising happiness in 6 squares. He wondered if billboards ever told the truth. Now, back in the compound, time crawled like a wounded animal. The radio switched songs. A baby cried next door. A muezzin called Asar prayer in the distance. The door opened again. Sandra stepped out wearing the satisfied smile of a woman who believed she had finally won. Jude followed, buttoning his shirt like a conqueror. "Now," Sandra said, "start calling buyers. This house is my pay for 10 wasted years." Jude laughed and made loud calls. Everyone was meant to hear. "Quick sale, clean papers, come and buy." Jeremy counted his breaths the way he once counted snowy steps in London when his shoes had holes and hope was thinner than his coat. 1, 2, 3. Sandra snapped, "Look up. Say thank you that I'm even letting you watch real life happen." He lifted his eyes. He searched for the girl who used to chase him around that mango tree with a slipper, laughing until she cried. He found only stone. 2 buyers arrived, poked around the house like vultures, wrinkled their noses at the kneeling beggar, and left with Jude to finalize transfer at the bank because network is bad. Sandra sat on the step, checked her lipstick in a small mirror, and smiled at the stain on the ground that used to be her husband. "Stand up and disappear," she said, "before I wash this floor again with your tears." Jeremy rose slowly, dripping, touched a hidden palm-sized phone in his torn pocket, walked to the almond tree by the gate, dialed. Now, he walked back in just as the first G-Wagon turned the corner, silent as a shark. Then another, then another. Neighbors pulled curtains. Children climbed gates. A small boy whispered, "Nah, film." 3 men in black suits entered first, earpieces flashing, scanned, nodded. The SUVs rolled into the tiny compound like gods visiting a village. Doors opened. Men in suits stepped out and bowed low to the drenched beggar. "Sir, your orders." Sandra's mirror slipped from her fingers and shattered on the concrete. Jeremy walked to the lead vehicle, sat inside for exactly 10 seconds, then stepped out, transformed, wig gone, beard gone, torn coat replaced by a midnight blue suit that cost more than the entire street. He looked like money that had learned how to walk. Sandra's knees hit the ground so hard the sound cracked like a gunshot. "Jeremy, I didn't know." Jude came running back alone, sweating, shouting about network problems, then saw the convoy and tried to run. 2 guards caught him by the elbows and placed him gently on his knees beside Sandra like a matching set of broken statues. Jeremy spoke quietly. "Sandra, I was faithful. I built an empire. I came home to test the only thing money cannot buy. I have my answer." Sandra reached out with shaking hands. "Please forgive me." Jeremy looked at the little house where love used to live. "Keep the house," he said. "It is your pay. As you said, your pay." He turned to the guards. "Escort him," a nod toward Jude. Then to Sandra, soft as a blade sliding home. "And I am no longer the man you poured soap water on." The convoy roared away, leaving only dust and Sandra's screams. But this story does not end with revenge. It ends with mercy no one saw coming. 8 months later, Jeremy's convoy crawled through 3rd Mainland Bridge traffic when he spotted a familiar shape curled beneath the Ojilegba underpass, thin, ragged, clutching a tiny bundle wrapped in newspaper. Stopped the car. He stepped out in Italian leather onto filthy ground. The woman lifted her head, skin and bone, eyes hollow, hair matted with Lagos, dust and despair. "Jeremy," she whispered, as if saying his name might make him disappear again. He crouched. "Sandra, what happened to you?" Through cracked lips, she told him everything. How Jude ran with the house money, how neighbors spat on her, how she gave birth alone under the bridge, how her baby boy died in her arms because she couldn't pay the hospital deposit. Jeremy's eyes filled with tears. He had not allowed himself the day she poured soap on him. He reached out his hand. She stared at it like it might burn her, then took it. He lifted her as gently as if she were made of glass. Nadia sat in the back seat of the G-Wagon, radiant in blue lace, watching everything. Sandra froze when she saw her former best friend wearing the future that should have been hers. Jeremy spoke softly. "We marry in 2 days, but no human being deserves to die under a bridge for their sins." They took Sandra to a salon, washed 10 months of street from her skin, dressed her in soft cotton, fed her jollof until she cried into the plate. Then Jeremy placed an envelope in her trembling hands, 5 million naira. She tried to give it back. "I don't deserve." "You don't," he said gently. "But mercy is not about what is deserved. Take it. Build something honest this time." 2 days later, Jeremy married Nadia, in a ceremony that shook Lagos. Sandra sat quietly at the back in a simple green lace, eyes swollen but clear for the first time in years. She watched her former best friend become the wife she had thrown away, and felt no hate, only gratitude. Years passed. Jeremy and Nadia never had children of their own, but they built schools, hospitals, and bore the fruit of kindness instead. Sandra's small grocery shop became a supermarket chain. Every young woman who entered heard the same warning, delivered with tears in her eyes. Greed will destroy you. Betrayal will bury you. But humility and mercy will raise you higher than pride ever could. And whenever people asked Jeremy why he forgave the woman who humiliated him so completely, he would smile and say only, "Because I came home looking for loyalty. Instead, God taught me how to give mercy, and that turned out to be the greater treasure." So tell me honestly, if you were Jeremy, could you have lifted Sandra from under that bridge? Could you have sat her at your wedding after everything? Or would the soap water still burn too much? Wherever you are watching from, drop your answer in the comments. If this story touched you, touched you enough to make you think twice before you judge the beggar at your gate, then share it. Because sometimes the dirtiest person knocking on your door is an angel wearing the ugliest disguise, testing whether your heart is still home. Subscribe for more stories that refuse to end with revenge, because real life is sweeter when mercy wins. Years later, Lagos had changed and yet stayed the same. Victoria Island had grown taller, glass towers kissing the clouds. The old mainland compounds still baked under the same relentless sun. Children who once climbed gates to watch Jeremy's convoy now drove past in their own cars, phones glued to their ears, retelling the legend of the billionaire who came back as a beggar. Jeremy and Nadia never had children. Doctors spoke of unexplained infertility, but they both knew the truth without saying it. Some wounds closed, some hearts simply choose another kind of fruit, so they poured everything into the ones who had no one. They built the Mercy and Mango Foundation, named after the tree where Jeremy and Sandra once promised forever. Every year on their wedding anniversary, they opened a new school or clinic in the poorest parts of the city. Nadia cut the ribbons. Jeremy carried the first child across every new threshold. Sandra's supermarket chain, Sandy's Grace, now had 32 branches. She refused to list it on the stock exchange. "This one is not for profit," she told journalists. "It is for penance." Every December she closed all branches for one day and fed the street children under the same Ojilegba bridge where she once lost everything. She served the food herself, on her knees, until her wrappers were soaked with stew and tears. People said she had become a saint. She laughed when she heard it. "Saints don't have memories like mine." One afternoon in 2032, a young man walked into the head office of Sandy's Grace on Awalawa Road. Tall, light-skinned, eyes sharp like he had seen too much, too young. He wore a neat but inexpensive shirt and carried a small backpack like a student. He asked to see Madame Sandra personally. The receptionist called upstairs. Sandra came down herself. Age had been kind to her. Hardship had carved dignity into her face instead of bitterness. She still wore simple ankara, no jewelry except a thin gold wedding band she had never removed, even after everything. The young man stood when she entered the waiting area. "Auntie," he said, voice trembling, "my name is David. David Chukwemeka Adam." Sandra's heart stopped. She knew that surname. She knew those eyes. She had seen them in a tiny face that went cold in her arms 17 years ago. She gripped the edge of a chair. "How?" The boy opened his backpack and brought out a small wooden box. Inside was a hospital bracelet, yellowed with age, and a photograph. Sandra on the floor under the bridge, cradling a newborn wrapped in newspaper. A nurse had taken it with an old Nokia before the baby stopped breathing. "I was adopted by the nurse who helped you that night," he said quietly. "She told me everything when I turned 18 last month. She died last year. Before she passed, she made me promise to find you, and to find my father." Sandra's knees gave way. She sat hard on the tiled floor, tears already coming. "Your father?" she whispered. The boy hesitated. "She said the man you loved, the one who came back, rich. His name was Jeremy. Jeremy Adam." Sandra laughed and cried at the same time, a sound like breaking and healing all at once. "Jeremy Adam is not your father, my son," she said, reaching for his face with shaking hands. "But he is the closest thing to an angel this city has ever seen." That evening she called the number she had never deleted, even after 17 years. Jeremy picked up on the second ring. "Sandra." His voice still carried the same calm strength. "I need to see you," she said. "Both of you. It's important." They met at the old compound, now a Mercy and Mango community center. The mango tree still stood in the courtyard, older, heavier with fruit. Jeremy arrived with Nadia, both of them grey at the temples now, holding hands the way they had for almost 2 decades. Sandra stood under the tree with the young man beside her. Jeremy's eyes narrowed, then widened. The boy looked exactly like the child he had imagined 1,000 times in nightmares and prayers. Sandra spoke first. "This is David. The nurse saved him that night. She swapped the bracelets, told the morgue the baby had died, and raised him herself. She thought if the child lived, one day he could heal what was broken." Nadia's hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Jeremy could not speak. He walked forward slowly, as if the boy might vanish. He stopped a foot away. David looked at him, then at Sandra, then back at Jeremy. "I don't know what to call you," the boy said, voice cracking. "I just know I have 2 mothers who suffered for me." and a father I never met, and another man who kept my mother alive when the world wanted her dead. Jeremy's tears finally fell. He opened his arms. David walked into them. Jeremy held him so tightly the mango tree seemed to lean closer, as if it too had been waiting 17 years for this embrace. Nadia joined them, then Sandra, until all four stood under the old tree, in one trembling, weeping circle. When they finally pulled apart, Jeremy looked at Sandra. "You kept the band," he said softly, noticing the thin gold ring she still wore. She smiled through tears. "Some vows break people, some vows save them. I never stopped being your wife in the place that matters." Jeremy turned to David. "From today," he said, "you lack nothing. School, house, name, everything. But more than that, you have a mother who carried death so you could have life. Another mother who loved without blood. And a father who learned mercy because he once knelt in soap water, looking for love." That night, the four of them sat under the mango tree until dawn. Ripe fruit fell around them like soft golden blessings. And Lagos, noisy, unforgiving, beautiful Lagos, kept moving outside the gates, unaware that under one old tree, a family that should never have existed was finally, completely, whole. Because sometimes mercy takes 17 years to ripen. And when it does, it is sweeter than anything revenge could ever grow. The end, that was never the end.